Most people think infidelity begins with a stolen kiss, a night of weakness, a sudden lapse in judgment. But what if I told you that, in reality, it starts much earlier? With a glance that lingers a second too long. With a presence that sends shivers down your spine without a single touch. With a feeling that should be discomfort, but somehow sparks an absurd pleasure. That was exactly how it happened to me. It was just another ordinary night, washing dishes after dinner, when I felt something behind me. A warmth, a presence. My body reacted before my mind could process it. The disturbing detail? I knew it wasn't my husband. The scent, the way the air seemed to shift, the different energy. Deep down, I already knew who it was. But what scared me the most wasn't his identity. It was the way my body responded before I could even stop it. And that's where the danger of betrayal stories lies. They don't begin with a big scandal. They are born in the details, in the unspoken moments, in the instances we pretend mean nothing. But they do. And by the time you realize it, it might be too late. Do you want to know how this infidelity story unfolded? Hold on tight, because nothing is as simple as it seems. Emma Carter was lost in thought, her hands covered in soap as she washed the dishes in the kitchen sink. The sound of running water drowned out the noises around her, but suddenly, something made her shiver. An unexpected warmth filled the air, as if someone was standing right behind her. Her heart raced, and a chill ran down her spine. Without needing to turn around, she knew exactly who it was. Lucas, her husband Daniel's best friend. There were no footsteps, no door creaking open. But there he was, so close that his presence felt almost tangible. Emma's mind struggled against logic. How could someone get so close without her noticing? Was it just her imagination? But reality settled in when the familiar scent of sandalwood and tobacco filled the air. A detail so specific it left no room for doubt. Lucas didn't need to announce his arrival. His presence spoke for itself. There was something strange about the situation. The atmosphere in the kitchen had shifted, thick with silent tension. The kind of silence that screams, that says more than any words ever could. Time seemed to drag as Emma kept her eyes locked on the soapy dishes. Her entire body was on high alert, warning her of an invisible danger, a game that hadn't even begun but already promised consequences. Her instinct told her to step away, but her feet remained rooted to the floor. Sometimes, danger doesn't announce itself with loud alarms. It sneaks in quietly, testing boundaries, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Emma took a deep breath, trying to ignore Lucas's presence behind her, but it was impossible. The scent of sandalwood and tobacco filled her lungs, an unsettling reminder that he was too close. Still without turning, she felt the weight of the silence. Then, like a stone breaking the surface of a still lake, he shattered the quiet with a vague sentence, laced with unspoken meaning. His tone was casual, but there was something underneath, something that slipped between the lines like a sharp blade. At first glance, the conversation seemed harmless. Random comments, trivial observations, but each word carried an unspoken weight. Lucas was a man who knew exactly what he was doing. He didn't need to be obvious to be dangerous. His presence, the way he stood just a little too close, was a psychological game, testing limits without ever clearly crossing them. But Emma felt it. She felt it in the air, on her skin, in the breath that threatened to become unsteady. The truth about certain kinds of infidelity is that they don't start with direct actions, but with suggestions. With glances that linger a second too long, with words that say little but imply everything. Emma knew she needed to cut the conversation short, to end the moment before something slipped out of her control.
But why?
If it was just a normal conversation, why was her heart pounding like it was warning her of danger? Lucas leaned in slightly, not enough to be obvious, but just enough for Emma to feel the intense proximity. He played with words like a skilled artist, painting a narrative where Daniel, his own friend, didn't appreciate her the way she deserved. "You deserve more," he murmured, his voice low but heavy with intent. Emma felt her blood heat, a mix of discomfort and something harder to name. He wasn't just making conversation. He was crafting a scenario where she was neglected, and he was the only one who truly saw her worth. The tension hung in the air, growing with every passing second. Lucas didn't touch Emma, but it felt as if he did. The space between them was too small, and the way he looked at her made her stomach tighten. Emma knew what was happening, but she also knew it was a game. A dangerous one. The kind that started with innocent words and ended in forbidden confessions. Her mind screamed for her to step back, to draw a clear line, but her body hesitated.
Why?
The danger of betrayal stories isn't just in the act itself, but in the path that leads to it. It's the small steps, the seemingly harmless moments, but ones loaded with meaning. Emma felt that this was one of those moments, a crossroads where any choice would bring consequences. And, even without wanting to, she realized that Lucas knew this very well. Lucas stepped away, leaving behind a thick silence, as if every unspoken word still echoed in the air. Emma let out a short breath, almost in relief, but she had no time to recover. Moments later, he returned. His presence felt even stronger now, as if he had left something unfinished the first time and had come back to complete it. "Interesting how certain things make us think. Don't you agree?" he said, enigmatic, with a half-smile that only deepened her unease. His return wasn't casual, it was calculated. Emma realized that Lucas knew exactly what he was doing. His sudden presence and carefully chosen words were no accident. There was an electric tension in the air, something that couldn't be ignored. If before it felt like a subtle game, now it was an outright provocation. He didn't need to say openly what he wanted. His posture, his gaze, and his half-spoken words said it all. And that made her wonder, how far was he willing to go? The problem with infidelities is that they rarely start with an obvious mistake. They begin with these moments, these lingering doubts that settle in the mind, creating space for forbidden thoughts. Emma felt a chill. Why, of all people, did Lucas seem so determined to make sure she wouldn't forget that moment? Emma spent the rest of the night trying to erase that moment from her mind, but it was useless. The scent of sandalwood and tobacco still seemed trapped in the air, and the memory of Lucas's gaze burned like an invisible mark on her skin. She wanted to believe it was just an exaggerated interpretation, but her body told a different story. The shiver she felt, the warmth in her face, the pounding of her heart, it all betrayed her. It wasn't just words or gestures. It was something deeper, something more dangerous. Guilt came crashing over her like a wave. She loved Daniel, didn't she? The mere fact that she was questioning her own reaction was already a problem. If there's nothing wrong, why do I feel this way? She asked herself, as if searching for an excuse for what she felt. But the answer didn't come. Doubt was a poison that seeped in silently, corroding her certainty. She tried to move on, to focus on what really mattered. But some things, once awakened, cannot simply be ignored. And then, the question that echoed in her mind, had that been a coincidence, an isolated moment, or was Lucas truly determined not to let her forget? What had started as a fleeting discomfort now felt like a persistent shadow, looming over her daily life. Emma felt that something had changed, and that this story of betrayal was far from over. Now that you've seen how a betrayal story can begin in the subtlest details, I ask you, how many times have you ignored that strange feeling? How many times have you pretended that a lingering glance meant nothing? Infidelity and betrayal don't arrive screaming. They whisper, they seep into the everyday routine, and by the time you notice, they've already taken over your life. The real question isn't just how it happens, but what you can do to prevent it from happening to you. And what if this story were yours? If the signs were right in front of you, but you chose not to see them? What else is happening around you that you haven't noticed yet? The truth is, infidelity stories always leave traces. You just have to decide whether you'll follow those traces or keep pretending you don't see them. The problem isn't the first step toward betrayal. The problem is the excuse you give for every step that follows. So, tell me, have you ever experienced something like this? Or do you know someone who has? I want to hear your thoughts. And if this content resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, we talk about the truths no one has the courage to tell.